Mafia podcast, yo, this raw. Rob, man, Ryan taking over the mic. There are few sports and the stories ignite. Rocking the house, we're taking flight. Turn it out loud, let's amplify. Podcast moving, reaching to the sky. Crank up the volume, here it's reunite. Join the ride, we won't deny.
G'day guys, welcome back to the show. We are the Beta Mafia and this is episode 54. Tonight's episode we have Todd from Jackalope and welcome on, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Good to be here. Appreciate you inviting us along.
Happy to have you.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
We're really glad that you said yes.
No, I appreciate it.
We were sitting around for a while just doing
Yeah, sometimes we get a little nervous.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all right. Yeah, it's a hectic time too. I've managed to come out of retirement. I'm doing a food service tomorrow, so helping out a mate who used to do some work for us, and he decided to he wanted to start a catering business, and we couldn't talk him out of it. So he decided he wanted to do a single food service for Christmas to say he actually ticked one off this year. So
Yeah.
my son and I are down at the shed tomorrow doing a barbecue pop up with him. So it should be a bit of fun. So,
Sounds alright.
yeah. So yeah, hopefully I don't die. I haven't done it in a few years. So
Yeah.
I was getting a bit old for it.
Yeah. Gets like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's how I obviously started. Jackalope was a catering business to start with, and then I got too old and slow, and then obviously went into other things, but started doing a few pop-ups here and there again, and then just decided as much as I love getting up early morning to cook meats and so on, and then there's probably better things to do with my time. Funny enough, making rubs is a bit more user friendly for lifestyle.
Yeah, she's hard work.
Yeah, no, it has its moments. So especially, and you just get to the point where you sort of think, oh, if I don't cook another brisket again, I'll it wouldn't faze me. But I think when you're doing hundreds of kilos of it a week, and then you sort of stop and you can kind of just appreciate it again. So after a while, I did probably a few months ago now, I did a pulled pork, and I probably hadn't done pulled pork in 5 years. And I just thought, it's actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
I just got completely sick of it, mate. So, yeah.
Oh, that's good. It rolls into the first question, really. What inspired you to start your own barbecue rub company?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So I'm actually third generation in the food industry. So my mother had a food business. She had a food truck in the 80s before food trucks were really a thing. And I grew up in Kalgoorlie and a little town called Kambalda, and she had a little food business where she'd run around the mining sites, doing lunches and things like that. And my grandmother did the same, so she had B&Bs and so on. All my uncles had hotels and cafes and lunch bars and things. So it was just something that was always been in the blood. But I went a different direction. I actually ran steel distribution companies for years. So started as a storeman and sort of worked my way up to sort of executive level. And I was working in Perth, and then went across to New Zealand and then Adelaide for a bit. So I was, if you're an Adelaide boy, I ran Stramit very briefly, and then moved up to Brizzy and running steel companies. And then I ended up working for a big American corporate, and then they decided one day to pull out of Australia, and everyone got made redundant. And I thought, well, I just didn't want to live the corporate life anymore. It was just a bit soul destroying, and I got a bit of a payout. So I thought, well, and obviously I grew up cooking over fire, and I thought, well, I wanted to give it a crack. So I just started a catering business and doing markets and pop-ups and catering events and things. And then it was something I was doing with my two sons, who were 15 and 16 at the time. So it's getting on 10 years ago now. And then once they sort of went into year 12, I just sort of realised they couldn't really give the time commitment. So I just wanted to do something else, and I just noticed that people were really enjoying the flavours. And at the time, there was only, who was around? I guess there was Wild Smoke. I think, they were pretty decent at the time, but then predominantly American brands. I think Heavenly Hell, so Pagey was doing his thing then, just starting out. And then So I thought there's probably a bit of a gap in the market there in terms of, Australian-made products. A lot of the American stuff, obviously, is a bit of a witch's brew if you look at the ingredients on some of them. So I just thought, I'll give it a crack, and so I started making these little pouches, little 100-gram pouches. I think the first day it took me like 8 hours to fill 200 pouches, and it was I thought, fuck, this is all right, and then it went okay, and my mate Billy from Meat at Billy's, I was actually working for him part-time at the time, and he was my first stockist, and then it just sort of grew from there. But it's something I've always enjoyed, playing around with flavors and trying to find things a little bit different. I find that a lot of the rubs you see, they're a bit samey, a bit sort of salt, paprika, sugar, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to just do something a little bit different. So one of the first ones I had was a pastrami rub, which I think is still the only real pastrami rub in the market, and then a few others. So it just sort of grew from there, really. And obviously a bit bigger than making 200 in a day now by hand in these little bloody silver bowls, but still all handmade, and hand filled though.
Yeah, a lot of places can say that either. I mean, I won't name any names, but I think you even touched on this subject a little bit in a post a couple of weeks ago. There's a little bit of a false claim by certain companies out there, and not a lot of people can say each individual bottle that you use is literally handmade and packed. Yeah,
and I think that caused a bit of a stir with, I guess, one person in particular. But it's I think it was and look, I stand by it. I think that post is really about what we do, not about what others don't. And I think it was just sort of the fact that it's sort of, some people got noses out of joint probably highlighted the fact that maybe there's some truth in it.
Yep.
And I think, so, and it comes from obviously, I guess the import side of it. Then, over the last sort of few years, there's been a whole heap of people who have just sort of, I guess, built up a brand or a name in the industry, and then just, I guess, utilize a third party to just, make a product and stick their name on it, so white label it. So I think, as we've sort of grown, we've had, I guess, opportunities to grow out to say, okay, well, not that I've ever even remotely considered it, but we could even third party our recipes, but I just don't think I could do it. I don't think I could let go of the control or the quality or, the idea, if our name's on it and someone else is making it, well, what happens if something goes wrong? You've got to be willing to stand by your product. Yeah. So, the only person I trust to make them besides me is my son, who works for us now as well. So he's in there, and well, to be honest, he probably can't hear me. He's probably the only one that's made them in the last 12 months. So I've been, he gets in there and sticks on. We have masks and all sorts, to try and, not masks for, like a beard mask, because it gets pretty hectic in there. You need to sort of protect yourself because, obviously you can only suck in so much cayenne pepper before it starts to affect you. So.
I was literally just about to say that. Like you'd experience it more on a larger scale than I have, but I have to make a couple of bags up, and I'm ready to my nostrils are just stripped, and it's fucking.
Nostrils like stripped, mouth on fire, and mate, you want to be careful going to going to the loo afterwards as well. So so we sort of we've got a kitchen now in our warehouse in Cooper's Plains where we mix it up, and we bought some industrial like dust masks that take the finest sort of dust and just wear those and try and protect ourselves. But it's a pretty hectic time in there. It's some wild smells when you're mixing it all together. But I just sort of built a big bespoke tub where we've got obviously big long gloves, and we still hand mix it and hand blend it and hand fill it. So filling's the real, I guess, time constraint. So I've been looking into different ways of being able to maybe just get a machine to fill it, but I think there's still something in hand mixing them, and I found that even when you do the recipes, even if you put things in a different order, you actually get a different result. So if you put one ingredient before the other, it changes it. It changes the texture, changes the colour. So we sort of make sure that we keep control of it and do it ourselves. and I think it'll always stay that way.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah.
Those things personal touch too.
But I think what you're talking about, Crop, is if people are going to import, that's fine. I think it's more around the idea of, I guess trying to build a brand or a perception that, it's locally made when it's not. I think that's, that's where I personally sort of think I find it quite challenging. But, look, at the end of the day, I think, everyone's sort of cotton on who we're talking about, and I think they've been wildly successful, and, good luck to them. There's no issues with the bloke at all. I think it's more around the idea of, obviously, the amount of people I've spoken to out in the industry who just assumed it was made here, and it's not. So I think, So I think from our perspective, if we can just have a bit of a fair crack in terms of having the opportunity to, to have people stock our products, and if they like it and they think it's good enough, they'll buy it again. There's enough room for multiple competitors. There's no need to, have any dirty tricks or try and push people out of the market. And I know that, I've experienced that personally by some of these companies where they've obviously tried to, for whatever reason, I seem to live rent-free in their head. Like I'm an absolute, I'm tiny in comparison to them, but for whatever reason, they've actively tried to, get me off certain shelves, and I don't really understand why that is. But, all we can do is just, sorry.
It's sort of like when when I first started playing around with, I'm just small batch, one flavour rub, and just send it out to mates and whoever wants it and shit like that. But as soon as I advertised that I actually started making, small batch barbecue rubs, I found like a few people in the industry sort of dropped off talking to me and supporting me and stuff. It's like you're not allowed to have your own brand or use another brand type of thing, which I think it's true, because if you got a good product, I'll use it regardless. And it comes down. And another thing you touched on too, like people. Not so much brainwashed, but I think people are influenced too easy just because someone's got 100,000 followers, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was the other little comment I think in that post that sort of got some people thinking and talking. But it's the same, and then obviously, as you know, probably I've actually placed an order for your product. It was a bit slow on shipping, mate. We won't won't sort that out. So it's still waiting. Yeah, it's all right. It's checked. It's in the mail. Yeah. But I think it'd be good. We're genuinely looking forward to giving it a crack, and I think that I'm a big believer in that. The idea that particularly for small batch guys and local guys, like I mentioned Heavenly Hell before. I've been really good mates with Pagey for a long time, and he's a really genuine guy who doesn't get involved in any of the any of the bullshit of the industry. He just makes his products, doesn't care what anyone thinks, and we've obviously been side by side at festivals and events, and I get along really well with him. But I think if you were someone who thought a certain way, you would see him as the opposition. But I just don't see him that way. Like he's obviously just making a product, and I'm making a product, and he's I think if there's a bit more of genuine lifting each other up, then particularly with small batch guys, then there's enough room for everyone. There's a lot of shops around the country, so we for our brand, we've just barely scratched the surface in terms of stockists, and we're making a good living doing what we're doing. So I think there's plenty around for everyone.
Yeah, we have touched on this many times on the podcast, because it's not just it transcends industries, into our small business as well, where the same thing. Competition doesn't have to just be competitive as other people see it. There is a brotherhood there that everyone can thrive together.
Yeah. I agree. A competitor doesn't need to be an opposition.
Yes, right.
So no, I completely agree with that, and I think I've met some really good people on the way, and I've met some people who think differently, but funny enough, the ones that seem to go the distance are the ones that are a bit more positive around that, because I guess you're more likely to have people, promote your product for you. If they're happy to, and I've never paid an influencer. I've never given So we sort of throw a bit of product out here and there, but I found it's funny, like if you think about the opposition side of things, I found there was this funny habit where if I sent a product out to someone and they'd use it and then they put a post up, within about 2 weeks they had a full suite of products from someone who I'd consider, I guess a competitor, and you think, oh well, that's fuck all that, I'm out, I don't want to know. So that's and as I say, these are all lessons that you sort of learn in the early days, and I had. Actually, I will tell you a story, but I won't say who it was. But I had someone in the early days. They contacted me and they're like, "Oh, I love what you're doing," and he was also making a product and said, "Oh, are you interested in doing a rub swap?" And I'm like, "Sure, nice guy, whatever." So I sent him my products, and so I had 4 at the time. The first 4 was SPG, Pastrami, Memphis, and the Adobo Mexican, and sent them off and waited a couple of weeks and hadn't heard anything. And so I'm like, oh, to message him, oh, did you get mine? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're going to send yours? And, oh, yeah, sure, getting around to it. And then another few weeks go by and nothing. And I thought, fuck, what's going on here? And hit him up again. Oh, I've just been really busy, mate, really busy. Then another 2 weeks later, I see this post that he puts up going, oh, I'm just getting close to finishing developing my pastrami rub. And I'm thinking, fuck. I think the bloody cheek of the bloke, he didn't even buy it to reverse engineer it. He snuck it out of me for free. I thought at least he could have done his border pouch off me before he tried to figure it out. But
about halfway through that story, I thought you were talking about me.
I was going to say the same thing.
No.
Oh, I'm waiting for this to be great.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, he didn't ship his either, coffee. So that's I thought, fuck, that was wild, man. So and in the end, it never happened. He couldn't nail it. So he actually it got released under another name. So as just a normal rub, but I can't say what it is, but it's quite the story. So it's
What a cheek.
Yeah, it was a bit out there. I think maybe you could have just gone to the shop and bought one and then tried to reverse engineer it that way, sneak one out of you. They're only $10 a pouch back then too. That's bloody cheap bastard.
Jesus, we got mates like
that. little pouches, mate. Little pouches. So, yeah.
What other challenges did you face when you first started? Anything in particular?
Look, I think it's just logistics and time. Like I to this day, I still have because I've got 5 kids, so most of them are all old and grown up. But I've got a nearly 14-year-old that lives with me full time, and so they're obviously making sure that we and it's just me. So and my older son, who's a recording artist, he lives with me as well. But one of them, and so I've still got a full-time job. And I still maintain that now. But back then, it was really just time. You still got to pay the rent. You still got to get them to school, find time to do all that. And then, for the longest time, when I first started doing it, there's a fella called Mick Hobson who used to have a business called the Goat Pie Guy here in Brizzy. So I used to rent his kitchen to make them. He was a really good mate. And then he just got out of the industry. So I ended up hiring Bolo kitchens and just lugging stuff, because obviously, back then Bolos were pretty defunct, and so we just utilised the kitchen to mix them. But it got to the point where I was like trying to lug, 300-400 kilos of spices plus all the paraphernalia to do a mixing day and then get back, and it just became, did become quite challenging. And the big shift was out the back of COVID, I went into business with my mate Steve. And Steve had a business at the time. He's got a train going by.
Yeah.
So my mate Steve had a business at the time called Ironwood Smokers. So he was just a sole trader, just running out of his shed in Mount Crosby, and just doing stuff like charcoal, just buying and selling wood chunks and so on. And we made the decision to at the time, we had someone that wanted to invest money in both of us, and they were going to throw the money at us, and it was going to be 33% each, and we're going to open a shop and have all this stuff, and then it was all, going gangbusters, and they were good people, but COVID hit, and then, the money went, and so Steve and I were just talking one day and said, what if we just bought into each other's business, and just the way, because operating as a sole trader, it can be quite tough at times, in terms of particularly when life's happening around you, to get the motivation to keep pushing on. And I could probably say that, if I didn't go into business with Steve, I probably would have, I don't know whether I'd still keep going. I think, I know I had a good product. It was really just life that sort of gets in the way. But, once we sort of bought into each other's business, we sort of, really lifted each other up. And, we rebranded Ironwood Smokers to Ironwood Barbecue. And then, and during COVID, it was actually, strangely enough, a bit of a godsend, because, obviously all of a sudden everyone's cooking at home. Online sales went berserk. People were at butchers. It was like Christmas every week at butchers, and that's where we stocked our products. So it was actually, a really strong time for us, funny enough. And, not so great personally, but all my kids moved back home, mate. It was bloody bullshit. But they all, they are chefs. So my son is and I've got another son in Melbourne who's a chef. And of course, as soon as COVID hit, they just immediately got the sack. So they had no money, living with me. They actually got interviewed on Channel 9 in the Centrelink bloody line. It was so funny. I thought, I was sitting there going, mate, look for the two biggest no-hopers in the line. So let's interview those guys. Bloody full of bloody tattoos and piercings, and look like they're So so on the back of that, we managed to find ourselves a shed that had the kitchen down in Cooper's Plains, which is for those who don't know, is a very, very roughneck part of town. It's very industrial, very like burnt. At the time there was. At the front unit, there was a guy that used to buy write-offs and turn them into Ubers. So he was doing that, and so there was just cars. The whole street was full of unregistered cars, and you'd come into work, and one of them had been set on fire, and it was bloody, and then they'd stick it on a tow truck, and the next fucking day there'd be another car there, on top of the ashes of the old car, and there was So in the end, we ran out of space, and we got that bloke booted, and we took over his shed as well. So it was so we grew into two sheds. Got a bloody big sea container now there full of charcoal. So it's we've probably outgrown that whole thing, but it's I think getting into a space that was the real change. Something that we could actually go to. It's ours. We can set it up, and and grow from it, rather than constantly lugging back and forward. So I think and I guess if you're getting back to rubs, the big challenge is obviously getting people to have a crack at your product. And I think that's where particularly if you're new, you haven't got the name, you just got to sort of encourage people to just have a go. And I always, the way I sort of see it is that because people always when you sign a butcher, they go, does it sell well? And I sit there and go, well, it'll sell as well as you push it. So, generally, they've got the power. If they recommend it, people will buy it. So the way I see it is we're making a deal when I stop there, and the deal is that, they'll give it a go and push it. And it's my job to make sure that it's good enough that if people buy it, they want to buy it again, So, and, as I say, I think part of the challenge is obviously just getting those butchers to have a crack. And I think, and it's funny, like we've got some that, there'll be guys that just aren't interested, and then we've got some where they just trickle along, they don't sell huge amounts, and then we've got some they can barely keep it on the shelf because they recommend it hard, and it's so, and that sort of gives me heart that it's good, because you can't make people buy it. So you put it this way, you can probably convince someone to buy it once. It's the buying it twice that's the trick, and that's where you've got to make sure you got a good product. So
Speaking of the product, how do you come up with your flavour combinations? Without giving actual ingredients away.
Well, I have I don't mind saying it's a neurodiverse house here, mate. I have ADHD, and that means that I go off on wild tangents all the time and in my own head, and I don't know if you know much about it, but it's so
we've got a bit of an idea actually.
Oh,
you
there
should
you
see
go.
the messages
So-
that hang around between the three of us.
Oh,
there you go.
What about-
So, yeah.
We've
Yeah.
got about 30 ABNs between the three of us.
Yeah. So, like, we're just ideas men, mate. We're ideas men. So, you know,
yeah, that's right.
and that's why I was so good at corporate life, mate. Because I just had people do the stuff. You know, I could just come up with the idea and just, you guys going, and they're thinking, great, he's empowering me to do the work, but really I was just fucking off with the fairies, and I know, you know. So, yeah, so it's more around, it's not necessarily looking for gaps, it's stuff that's interesting to me. You know, like the adobo is actually the first product I made because I just love Mexican food, and you know, and that one's a strange one because it's got no salt, so it's not technically a rub. It's like a spice blend, and the reason I put no salt in it is because I like using it as a base for a chili, and that way I can use as much of it as I like, and it's not going to affect the seasoning. It's not going to get too salty, so then I can use as much as I like, and then just add salt to taste. So that's, I guess, what drove that. Pastrami was something I thought, you know, it's really unique. And to this day, I think it's still the only rub that takes something and turns it into something else, which is, so it's not just flavouring it, it's grabbing corned beef and or brine brisket or whatever, and it makes it pastrami. Dill pickle dust was, that was,
Oh, man.
that was a bit out there.
That's one of the... I first tried that at the first Toowoomba meat stock. And it was... Still, there's nothing like it on the market. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it on the market at all.
Well, it's funny because, well, there's actually, if you want to, I wonder if it's still around, is, I don't know if you've, Wertho, who has the barbecue shop up in D Bay, there's a video of him snorting it. So it's, and it's, it didn't go well, man. There's a lot of vinegar powder in that thing, so it's, yeah, you can imagine how that went down. But that one there, so my son, as I say, he's chefing in Melbourne, and he rings me one night and he goes, I went to the pub and they had dill salt, just salt with dill in it on the fries, and it got me thinking. I'm like, man, because I love pickles, like, or anything fermented, man. I'm there for it, and I thought, geez, I wonder if this could be done, and that's where. The way I always think is, you know, is it possible? Is it possible? So, like for me, I sort of like eating things and going, you know, could I make a powdered version of this? Yep. If that makes sense. Yep. So it's sort of, so with that one there, it was sort of digging around and saying, okay, well, you know, what would go in it? And obviously, you know, you've got vinegar and you have to source that because I refuse to use anything artificial, any artificial flavors whatsoever. So I could use all sorts of chemicals to get there. I could use, you know, like citric acid and all that kind of stuff, and get the same vibe, but it just wouldn't be the same. So I had to, you know, and obviously, you know, I'm not saying you're gonna have salt, garlic, dill, and vinegar and so on in those things, but and then I was tasting it, and I'm like, well, it's nice, but there's something, you know, when you eat a pickle and you just get that salivation in the back of your jaw, and that, you know, and I thought, you know, that's missing. So it just took me a while just to play around with different spices, but I managed to find one that actually, you know, added to the flavour, but actually created that feeling in your mouth of eating a pickle. So I thought, geez, that's really sort of stumbled on there, and that one's a funny one because people aren't quite sure what to do with it, but they know they want it. It's you know, so it's and we do all sorts with it, but you know, it's a, you know, anytime we have, you know, gems or fries here, it's smashed with dill pickle dust. But you know, we'll put it in potato salad and run it through cream cheese for a dip, or you know, really nice one. And it's good because it's a finishing dust. So a lot of rubs taste like arse when they're raw. But the thing about that one is you can actually put it, just, you know, you cook and then you put it on afterwards, and it's you know, give it an extra dust. So I find that's quite unique. So. Yeah,
it's pretty. I don't eat near as much veggies as I should, but it's very good on vegetables, and it's the first thing I ever tried it on.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not one of those things where it's sort of hard to describe the taste, but you'd have to just go and try it. As you said, try it once. I'd definitely be surprised if someone didn't like that.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had people say, you know, particularly at meat stock, and meat stock's really good because you get those sort of face-to-face interactions, and people are like, oh, I don't like pickles, and I'm like, man, just try it, you know, just try it, and you know.
Yeah.
But I won't tell a lie. My partner's not a massive fan because she doesn't she's not a huge fan of dill. So, and I'm punching, well and truly punching above my weight. So I've just learned to deal with it. So it's, I've just sort of accept that. Just accept that she likes all my other stuff though. In fact, the new one, the roast was is her favourite. She wants to put it on everything. So I don't know if you've tried that one, but it's the first. Sorry, it's
slowly getting through them at the moment. Yeah, I think I've used the dark side. It was gone straight away. I've never used the rubs, so like that. It literally forms the perfect bark every time. You know, you get sort of inconsistent like bark on brisket. Like I don't know what it is, or maybe people are just hopeless when they apply rub, but it's literally the perfect bark every time.
No, I appreciate that, and it's which is hilarious because I understand that is the actual tagline on the product. So
yeah.
And then the big thing for me there is, again, you know, there's a lot of I don't want to be too controversial, but there's a lot of, I guess, rubs that contain things that colour the meat that isn't food. And how can you put that? So I won't say what it is, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I sort of look at it and I think, you know, people sort of, you know, show their brisket and they're like, look at that bark, and you're like, no, you've kind of just coloured it in, mate. It's not really bark. And some of them they almost look like a bit of an oil slick. Some of them, it's really quite weird. But I just wanted to make sure it was something that is food but still has a flavour. If it's not going to add to the flavour, it's just got no business being in there. Like I've seen rubs that have rice flour and all that kind of stuff. Even forgetting the chemical element or the preservatives and that kind of stuff. Like, you know, they put rice flour in it, and you sit there and go, well, yeah, it's food, but it literally only exists to sort of pack out the product. So you're not putting spices in, you know. So there's no value of it all. So I think, yeah, particularly with I'm hoping Croppy doesn't put rice flour in his rubs, otherwise I feel like a right idiot. But
I don't even know where to buy it,
just your local Sunlit will have plenty of it, mate. So So I thought, well, you know, so for that one there, obviously I used coffee, but you know, for those who know, it's good quality salt that helps create that bark. So you know, I actually only use really good quality kosher salt, and without getting into the argument of why kosher salt over another, you know, literally the only reason I use it is the flake size is really good. The theory of kosher salt is it's from what I understand, it's a lower density, and salt's what creates that bark and creates flavour. So you want to be able to use as much of it as you can without it being salty. And I think my understanding is using that lower density allows you to use more of it without it becoming salty. So I pay probably 5 times as much for my salt than just regular salt. But I think it's worth it. And I think, you know, there's all sorts of ways where I could cut costs and stuff like that, but there's just no point, you know. So
I mean, when you start cutting corners, you sort of diminish a quality product a little bit as well. So
exactly. And I thought there's just no point doing that. And as I said, I could probably do it cheaper getting it done in the factory, and then I could do it cheaper, you know, cheaper ingredient. Where does it end? You know, where does it end? So we're just sort of saying we'll just stay true to what we do, and you know, we're happy with the margin we make on it, and I think that's the important part. So, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to be rich from it, but I think I'm bloody happy. I'm certainly a lot happier than I was working in corporate. I know that. So,
yeah,
that's really.
While we're talking about ingredients,
go ahead.
How do you source your ingredients?
Well, depending on what it is. So I have some really good spice suppliers who I built up. So my first spice supplier was a guy called Richard, and he was a blind Indian guy, and there's no word of a lie. And he had a shed up on the north side, but I tell you what, whenever I walked in the door, he'd be sitting like without having a crack. The lights are always off. It's always dark in there, and it's obviously meant nothing to him. So you go in, and he's sitting over in the corner, and as soon as you walk in, he's maybe 5-6 meters away, and he's like, "Oh, how you going, Todd?" And I sit there and I'm like, "Fuck it." I must bloody stink. But and he was excellent. Like really, really top guy. And then he obviously he sold his business. He was an old man. He had to be 70. But God, if anyone sees this and realises he's only 50, I'm going to feel like a dickhead. But it's, yeah, so and just from there, obviously, just sort of built some relationships, and like you're saying, I could probably, push out there and push for cheaper prices and cheaper, things like that. But what I like is consistency of supply and consistency of product. So it's making sure I'm dealing with people I trust, and then from there, so that's for, I guess, the base products, and for the kosher salt, mate, so I'm comfortable saying I use David's kosher salt. So I used to get a lot of it, and on the back of it, we now distribute it with Ironwood Barbecue, and we go through more than you could, between the two businesses, we go through more than you could ever imagine of that, and it's so that's been a good little winner there, and I'd say it's very expensive in comparison to just salt. And then some of the more exotic stuff, you got to get out there and have a bit of a look. But I think I was playing around with some fruit powders and things like that, and then some funky stuff. And there's the thing, like I'll sit there and just something will pop into my head, and like I'm working on something at the moment, which I can't really talk too much about, but it's very different, and it has a product I've never used before, and I was curious to know whether it exists. But in fact it does, and I was able to get some samples of it, but I can only buy it in just massive sacks. So I was sitting there going, fuck, how am I going to store this? How's it going to work? But I think it's a winner. I really would, and I'm a chronic oversharer, but I am going to just hold back on letting you know what it is. But what I'll do, boys, is when I've got at the sample stage of it, I'll send some out to you boys, and you can try it and see what you think, because I think it's going to be something really cool. And it's, I think that's part of the fun. I think as you from that, getting back to that neurodiverse perspective, that's the fun part. The boring part is actually making it every week and selling it. So, like playing around and coming up with the ideas and think, fuck, I wonder if I can do this, and having a go and writing my numbers and getting it right. And, it's a massive process in terms of, obviously getting the ratios right. And then you have to scale it as well. And then obviously, sort of scale it right out to, our mixes are still sort of 20 kilo batches at a time. We're not doing hundreds of kilos at a time. So we're literally doing 20 kilos, 20 kilos, 20 kilos. Everything has to, be able to batch up to that. But, we can do, with one person, we can do, 600 shakers a day. Just sort of, just mixing, hand mixing and hand filling.
Yeah,
so,
holy shit.
And if we can, and that's like, I guess the one benefit that came from working in corporate life, I was able to do some training around operational excellence and lean principles and that sort of stuff in terms of, movement minimization and all that kind of. I won't bore you with it, because it's really boring. But I actually found it quite interesting in terms of analysing how time works in terms of being able to make something, or like just by placing something there instead of there, how you can save time. So with the limited abilities we have hand making it, we've been able to set up really, really clean processes to be able to smash it out, and I think that's the benefit of it. Like we don't mix every day, we probably mix once a week, and in the busier times now we might go out to 2, but we have the potential of scaling up to 5. We can grow 5 times as big as we are now without changing a thing other than doing it every day. And and then obviously you can get a second person in, and you wouldn't double it, but you'd probably do 1.5 times what you're doing. So there's plenty of scope to grow without us having to make any sacrifices around quality or the way we do it. So and I think if we got up to the point where we're selling 600 a day, it's probably about as far as I'd want to take it, mate, because it's a fella can dream. We'll see how we go. But, I'm getting old now, mate. I might not. I turned 50 last year, so it was yeah. So who knows? If we've still got the time and energy.
Yeah.
But as long as we're making new things, mate, that's sort of keep me interested.
Yeah.
agree.
How do you handle the packaging and labeling side? Do you get involved in the designs and everything? Having a look at your gear with your logo and your ideas around that, or?
Yeah. So my way back when I was called Jackalope Slow Foods when I first started. My oldest son, he helped me design the little guy that's on the shaker, and not this guy. He came later, but so the guy on the shaker, and then the Jackalope. That was actually a font set that I just bought, and I did it all myself. And then between us, and then somewhere along the line, there was a young fella whose dad worked for a design, and his dad owned a printing company, and he was the one that put the horns at the back. And then from there, there's so I use a local company for my labels. Again, I try and keep things local as much as I can. So there's a really good fella, Max Labels, up in Brendale, and he sort of does my printing for me, and he sort of pushed me off to a girl up on the north side who helps me with design and things like that. And we've played around with utilizing some colors and that sort of thing. But we're I keep second guessing myself and just stopping, because I like one of the things I like about my product is you can go into a shop and you can look over on the wall and you can actually see where my products are. Whereas obviously a lot of guys, they'll release 5 rubs and there'll be 5 different colors. And you sort of think, there's nothing to say that that's what it is, but you can see them from a distance. But and I've always tried to stick to that sort of monochrome black and white. And then a couple of years ago, I actually wanted to look at rebranding, so I engaged a guy called Joel Pringle. Funnily enough, you might have, a lot of people would have seen him on Instagram. You see his designs everywhere. You can see, he did this, and obviously the shirt, which I'm sure you've seen. Yep. With the whole that's actually me, by the way. So,
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you can see, he's actually wearing because I wear Chuck Taylors everywhere. So he's got Chuck Taylors on. He's a bit fat and got horns and so on. So it's So he's doing his thing. Shorts and a t-shirt is pretty much all I wear. So so he basically drew a cartoon Jackalope version of me, and went on. So when I got him, I got it tattooed on myself, and then someone's like saying, "How up yourself can you be to tattoo yourself on yourself?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't really fucking think about it that way. I was just trying to be proud of my brand." But thanks. But So that was actually going to be, I was going to redo all the labels, and just at the last minute I thought, you know what, I've actually it'll be 10 years next year, and I thought, I really tried to build that brand and build that identity, and I just wasn't quite ready to, I didn't think it was a good idea to completely flip it on its head. So I've just tried to introduce this from a merch and branding perspective, but the product still remains the same. So I think, again, I'm no expert, but I know what I like, and it gets down to that control. So
where does the name? Yeah. Where's the name come from?
Can I tell you the real story or not? This would be, I've never told anyone outside of my close family this. So it's all right. So the jackalope is a mythical American animal. If you Google it, there'd be lots of stuff. It's actually got a bit of a cult following. So a lot of taxidermists will grab jackrabbits and bloody stick little antlers on it and sell them and so on. So, and the theory is that it scares cowboys at night by mimicking their cries, and you can only placate it by giving it whiskey. So I kind of like that, but I'll tell you the real. Oh fuck! Do I really? So. The real story. So when
just between us.
Does anyone listen to this podcast? Does anyone watch it, or what's your listenership? So it's actually quite a personal story, and as I say, I've never told anyone outside my family. But it's you guys have got young kids, is that correct, or is that you got youngins? So Pixar films. So.
Yep.
So at the time, I was I've just been made redundant. And you know, when you sort of work for a long time, you build up, you know, I guess a status or whatever it might be, or wherever your thinking is at the time. Like I was on, you know, just money that people shouldn't be paid because it's ridiculous. And, you know, I'd earn, you know, coming from a storeman to that kind of level, and then to just say, nah, you're out, you know, really sort of gave my self-esteem a bit of a kicking. And obviously I was feeling a bit sort of sorry for myself. And there is a Pixar short film called Bounden. And I can't remember which Pixar film it's at the front of, but, you know, feel free to look it up. And it's about this sheep, and the sheep is, you know, the most beautiful sheep in the land, and it's bouncing around, and look how beautiful I am. And then all of a sudden a farmer comes along, rips it by the leg, shears it, and just dumps it in the rain. And he's obviously feeling a bit shit and sad and sorry for himself. And this jackalope comes bouncing over the hill and tells him that basically, well, how could I, you know, sum it up? It's really the idea that, you know, good and bad things happen, but, you know, depending on how you look at it is how, you know, how you can move forward, I guess, in a way. So, you know, the idea is, you know, gratitude for the things you have got is what he talks about, you know. So it's, you know, and I sort of look at it and go, you know, I've got a family that love me, and I've got, you know, I've got health, and I've got, you know, some skills, and you know, maybe there's a way forward. So that was really the drive, and I thought, you know, that sort of really stuck with me. And, you know, so that combined with the you know, I guess the mythical aspect of it, and I guess, you know, I was making a product that I guess could be considered, I guess, American in its nature. I guess, you know, the idea of obviously making barbecue rubs, and yeah, so that's where we went. So, and I'll probably never tell that story again, boys. So it's so.
I think it's actually pretty cool.
I like the philosophy behind it. It's like, it's a bit of a, there's a bit of a Buddhist message in there. They do touch on what is good and what is bad. You know, you never know if something bad happens, but it could be something like, you don't know the intent of what things happen, and then you just got to make the best of it. And, you know, there's a whole thing, the whole story to the Buddhist thing. It's quite an excellent story. If anybody ever wants to look at it, it's fucking excellent.
No, yeah, so I totally agree. And then you try and get down to the point of saying, you know, there is no good or bad, there's only how you feel.
Yes.
And I think, you know, and they're easy words sometimes, and obviously I've been through some dark times, and I know some friends have been through some really dark times, and I think, you know, having some, you know, and some that haven't made it through those times, unfortunately, and I think, you know, by sort of just trying to shift your perspective, or, you know, it's amazing what talking to the right person at the right time can do as well. And I think that's that's a big lesson that we can always learn in terms of, you know, don't assume what people are going through, and don't be afraid just to ask a mate how they're going, or, you know, to see, you know, if they need some help, because a lot of people are too proud to ask.
Yep.
And I think, you know, that kind of stuff. And then if you can just sort of help people, I guess, shift their perception and help them move forward, then anything's possible, you know. Like, I never would have dreamed that I'd be doing this 10 years ago. And, yeah, it was just a real life changer watching a fucking cartoon. But I can tell you, watch it, and you'll know exactly what I mean. So it's called Bounden, and it's actually voiced by Bud Lucky, who used to do a lot of the voiceovers for Sesame Street in the old days, and he did a lot of other voiceover work and things. So quite a famous guy. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I might watch it after this, actually.
Brilliant.
Haven't watched it in a while.
I'll watch with the kids tomorrow, I reckon.
Yeah, it could be a...
Sure.
Yeah, I could do it while I'm hungover still, so...
Yeah.
What's a day of making rubs look like in the warehouse? Like, what's your production day?
Well,
Sort of look like.
Yeah, so we sort of organise all stock to sort of come in throughout the week. So yeah, tomorrow we've got a delivery, which will be a few hundred kilos and so on. But we're doing the food pop up, so we'll be mixing rubs the day after. But it's essentially just sort of, you know, we at the end of every mix do a full stock take of everything. So we're saying, okay, well, what spices have we got? What stock have we got? You know, how many empty shakers we've got, and all that, and how many labelled shakers. So that's a very, very, if I could give anyone advice, don't get a fucking square shaker if you're going to do it, and certainly don't get one, that's got a recessed label, because you cannot get a machine to bloody fix the labels. So they are hand stickered, all of them. So not by me. So so there's some. I actually coach. I coach an AFL team, a kids AFL team, and then so I'm involved quite heavily in the club. And there's a few kids there that may or may not be at the age of being able to work. So they get a bit of cash labeling shakers. So so we'll go in. So we'll have a bit of a plan based on the sales that we've done over the week, and then it's pretty much just set up. So there's because, as I say, I'm interested in obviously workflow. I've got some bespoke benches and that sort of stuff made, so things are at just the right height to be able to, weigh stuff out, and we've got some heavy duty scales and that sort of stuff, and then it's just go for it. So, and it's really just again, we make them in the right order as well, and then make each one, the ingredients have to go in the right order, and then it's just make and fill for the day, and then clean down. So it's it's hectic work. It's it's not as bad as it used to be, because in the bolos there's no aircon, so you can imagine it'd just be absolutely depressing. So we've got a decent aircon in this one, so we set it to about 16 degrees, because you also want it very dry. You need no moisture. Moisture is the enemy with rubs, so it's which makes it hard in Queensland, because the humidity is just ridiculous. And so we've got a very, very powerful aircon that's got a nice dry setting, and keep it cold. And that's why I think they advise a lot of people to sort of keep rubs in the fridge and that sort of stuff. But I don't do that, because they don't last as long. So they don't last long in my house, so I don't need to put them in the fridge. So I use them. So I use them all the time in general. Like the rub, I probably use that in general cooking in the kitchen more than barbecue. So good on chicken, good on everything really. Lamb, also had some tonight on some lamb cutlets, which is good. So that's So that's pretty much the day, and then obviously we combine that with Ironwood Barbecue as well. But I'm not so Steve's full time in the business with Ironwood Barbecue. So he's doing the day to day. He's lugging, packing, filling orders. I'm more hands off with that. So I look after wages, financials, marketing for as much as marketing we do. So we don't really throw a lot of money at it, but just try and look after the behind the scenes stuff. I also arrange the charcoal deals and all that kind of stuff, because I've got a decent background with doing trading and that sort of stuff through the steel industry. So it's been that was a big boon for us, having our own brand of charcoal. So that's gone very, very well. It's really, really good quality. But
that's good. Well, we'll finish off with one last question.
Go ahead.
Let you go.
That's all right, mate. That's all right.
What advice would you give someone that is just starting out in the industry?
Don't do it, because you're a fucking competitor. And that's no. So it's have a crack, man. Have a crack, and full power to anyone who mixes their own, who has a go at mixing their own rubs. And I see it on the Facebook page all the time. People mix their own. I'm like, fucking more power to you, man. You should absolutely do that. And that's exactly how I started. And I started making my own flavors, and enough people liked it. But I think the advice would be try and listen to the right advice. I think there's there'll be plenty of people who give you the wrong stuff, and I think try and listen to the positive people, and stick true to yourself. It's not about making money. I think when I sort of after watching Pixar and so on, I really just sort of ran on the theory that if I do what I love, eventually the money will come. And I think and I think that's been a really good lesson. So don't sort of shortcut yourself. Don't think that it's about money. Don't don't let go of your integrity. And it's something I've always tried to teach my boys, is that integrity is the one thing people can't take away from you. Yeah. So because that comes from you. So I think if you maintain that when you're going about it, stay true to your values and what you want to achieve, and have a crack. And if anyone was interested, and I mean this genuinely, if anyone was interested, anyone could flick me a message. I look after the market. If someone, as you guys know, if someone messages Instagram, it's me on the other end. So there's no marketing person. So I'd be more than happy to, help someone out, or, there's no issues with that at all. So,
sound advice.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, you've been an absolute legend of a guest.
Oh, cheers, mate.
It was good.
It's been a lot of fun.
Brilliant.
I think you
it's
guys,
been great.
you guys got about fucking 5 words each, but I did warn you, so it's,
That makes our job
You're
much
the kind,
easier.
you're the kind of guest. You're the kind of guest that we like to have on.
Little required from you guys. Well, that's part 1 done.
Yeah,
so of our 15-part series, so we can we have a
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, we can talk about footy next time, mate, and how the Blues might get up next year. So it's
we like to talk footy on here, so
that's all right. Yeah, well,
The start of the season starts off really good in about 3 games. Fuck footy.
Yes.
Well, if I'm
especially for me.
who do we all follow? What do we got? What's your?
I'm Eagles.
I'm Power.
I'm actually NRL, so I go the Cowboys, but I don't really have a team yet from the AFL.
Yeah.
I've only started watching probably this year.
May I suggest Carlton Croppy? So it's mate, I'll tell you, last year, if we're talking, obviously we're a bit quiet this season, but last season, I'll tell you what, up and about, you would have heard from me then. So it's yeah. But there we go.
Apparently they're looking pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, well, we said that last year too.
I think
mate,
everyone's looking good. Everyone's looking good in the pre-season.
Mate, it's we said that last year too, but fair to say we probably underperformed. But the year before, I actually managed to get my son, and we went and watched that final against Melbourne. It was 96,500 people at the MCG, and it was just one of the man. I don't mind saying, to be able to share it with my son, I cried my eyes out. It was just something else. It was something that will live with me forever. So footy's funny like that. But now's not the time. You run out of time. We can talk about that another time if you have me back sometime.
I saw that we had Eagles had an extra game in Adelaide next year. And then I'm like, seen it against Carlton. I'm like, for fuck's sake, couldn't have been against this shitter team.
I reckon West Coast could have an extra 5 games over everyone else, and they still wouldn't make the finals at the moment. But it's so it's sorry to say.
That's bloody true.
As a WA boy, mate, I definitely feel for you. It's West Coast. I won't say they've always had a special place in my heart, but I obviously know them well because I live there. So, but you're. As you well know, mate, they've been very successful, and everything turns around. The system is designed for them to turn around.
We'll be back again.
As long as they don't trade it away, mate. That's use your draft picks, mate. Use your draft picks.
That's right.
You just let whoever your coach is now, because whatever his name is. So let him know, mate. Oh, that's right. The old Richmond. Yeah, the old Richmond bloke. So you just let him know I told you, mate. So draft pick.
I will do.
All right, boys.
All right, mate. Thanks for coming on.
All right,
Cheers,
talk to you again. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. All right, catch you later, guys.
Bearded Mafia Podcast, yo, this raw. Rob Man.